ほんと、あんたってバカ。
She uttered under her breath, looking up at him. As much as she hated to admit it, she could not refuse his hand. Resigning herself, she reached out to Sojiro. Oh no. But her hand never reached his. A small bell chimed. What? A line of wind whipped through the air. It cut through his waist like a guillotine. Oh no! Pieces began to fall. What were those things dropping before her eyes? Aoko could not remember who they belonged to.
Sojiro?
Oh, what did I say? Didn't think it'd be like that. That used to be his name, right? The name of whoever lay in the red snow in front of her. His face now rested on the ground beneath her chin. The smell of viscera assaulted her nostrils. A river of blood flowed from what used to be his stomach. It happened so fast. Too fast for her mind to process, in fact. Her only solace was he probably did not suffer. How could she think so calmly, especially after what she had witnessed? Her blood boiled at her own stupidity, which begged the question, how should she treat the one who did this? That was a bell sound. That was a ploy kickshaw sound. She had used all her anger on herself. She had none left to give anyone else. But this hatred was hers and hers alone. Her problem was this. Could she muster the emotions from this drought of anger? She was not sure, but the thought of hunting them down made her smile unconsciously in anticipation. Aoko turned to the old school building, where Toko was standing with her arm out in front of her. She had used the same rune magecraft she used against Aoko and Alice, except Sojiro had no magic crests. Toko's amber eyes were narrowed, staring intensely at the fallen corpse. As to what she might have been feeling, Aoko could not care less. Even if Toko felt regret, Aoko would never forgive her for as long as she drew breath.
やはり君からこうしておくべきだったな。
Toko was not speaking to Aoko, but to the dead body. There was no response. No clouds of breath. Coming to terms that he was truly dead, Aoko pushed herself up to her feet.
案外無様ね。
Oh, you can hear the brokenness in her voice. Facing her sister in the distance, Aoko spoke hoarsely.
でも正しい選択だわ。これで勝負はやり直しだもん。
Why are mages like this? She turned away from Sojiro and stared at Aoko. They stood far apart. Okay, so that wasn't... That was just the sound of, oh shit, magic, not the sound of a ploy kickshot. Because if that was Alice that did that, I would have actually, like, that would have been the second most betrayed I've ever been by a Kanoku Natsu story. Farther apart than their positions made them seem. Though there was nothing left to say, the two of them exchanged words and respected the fact that they were once sisters.
ああ、魔術刻印という私の切り札はこの通りで、人狼というカードもお前の切り札の前に敗れ去った。だが、そちらも刻印を使い切り、彼も今息絶えた。互いに決定打はなくなったわけだ。
そうね。私も甘かった。人狼が再起不能になった時点で、あなたが敗北を認めたなんて勝手に思い上がるんだから。
I'm kind of sad right now.
本来
To be
は
honest.
そうなるんだけど、あなたがそんなに諦めがいいのなら、この町に戻ってきはしないものね。本当に甘かった。
It was clear to Toko that Aoko was trying to suppress her emotions. Aoko was right, though. Her sister had counted on Beowulf to succeed. As mages, no matter what cards Aoko or Alice had in their hands, they were helpless against the werewolf. But then, Sojiro had shown up, and Toko couldn't win as long as he was around. Unfortunately, though he had stopped the werewolf, he had been defenseless against the mage. So she had to kill him. With Sojiro out of the way, no one could hold Bayo back. It would take time for him to recover, but as long as his wounds were only mental, they could be overcome. Alice and Aoko could try to attack again before he recovered, but Alice was being kept in check by the poison. Right, so it couldn't have been her. Well, I was thinking about that. I'm like, how? So Toko still had the advantage. Stalemate still. The battle would drag on. Unless Aoko were to use it. Oh, you know it's gonna pop off when the art style changes. Powdery snow began to whirl around. The air around her wailed. It was magecraft that transcended all that was mystical. The gate to miracles beyond human comprehension ready to show itself.
やる気のようね、青子。
Toko released the crests maintaining the fields. With that, her grandfather would be freed and the barriers around Misaki would be restored. Which was not what Toko wanted, but it was that or forfeit her life. The crests at her disposal were now twice as powerful as her sister's. Aoko gazed at this new threat with her eyes half closed. None of this was her concern. Far removed from the situation, she was searching for something hidden deeper inside herself, desperate to reach it. There it was. An odd feeling like picking up algae. It's not the fire of emotion. It's not solid, nor great. It must have been what people meant by rising to the occasion. Abandoning thought itself, Aoko held on to that feeling as she stared at her enemy.
いいわよ、トウコ。
She spoke softly, yet more loudly than a
お
scream.
望み通り、本当の魔法を見せてやる。
That's a line. Focusing her power into the dim crests on her right arm, she weaved the words together. A single incantation. A final, heartfelt farewell. A brilliant blue-colored magic, taking time back to when a certain person had been blessed. To put it simply, magecraft is human wisdom. It is the world as we know it. Magic is the singularity that exists beyond either of those. At the beginning, the first changed all. Next, the second recognized many. In answer, the third showed the future. Tethered, the fourth concealed itself. And the final fifth had long since lost its significance. Someone once said had it only ended at the third. Magecraft is the study of history, feats of our making in life orbiting the planet. But true magic is the providence of a god beyond the heavens. Why do those who stand on the earth extol the virtues of miracles beyond humankind in the planet? This was an undeniable sin. Magic was the enemy of humanity. That is why those who obtain a new magic are killed by the Red Shadow.
聞け、万物の霊長。
Aoko's voice resonated through high and above the winter skies. The air began to fracture, turning the scenery to broken glass. Is it a reality marble? Toko wondered whether she should fight or flee. She decided to try and keep her feelings in check and see this through. But the object of her obsession for so many years was right in front of her. Rationality was slipping from her grasp. Both of their fates were now uncertain. Toko had overwhelming advantage when it came to her crests and terrain. When it came to true magic, however, if Haozaki magic was anything like Alice Kuonji's fairy tale monsters, then mage strength was not part of the equation. At this point, it was Toko against magic itself, and there was no winning against truth. The transcendence and idiosyncrasy of true magic rendered things like magecraft irrelevant.
だが
Toko stared at her sister, wondering if she could actually use it. Her proclamation lacked conviction. She had raised her voice, but that was out of discipline, not it had not been the arrogant conviction to sacrifice someone else for her own gain. Having not been chosen to inherit it, Toko could not imagine what the magic in her sister was. Only that it was a force violent enough to change the world. No human mind could withstand the audacity required to make an enemy of the world itself. Especially not someone as indecisive as her sister. The power of magic would surely cripple her.
そりゃ
Feeling Toko's eyes on her, Ako doubted herself. She could not help but hesitate. Terror gripped her heart tighter.
でもだからって
She could not run away forever. Her hesitation and terror meant she would never forgive herself for stopping now. Closing her eyes, she pushed herself into the final stage. Time stopped, like a light being switched off. She submerged herself in her own darkness. Everything froze, only she moved. Everything around her disappeared as she passed a limitless stream of stars. And as soon as she did, she wanted to disappear into the empty, thoughtlessness place. Thoughtlessness? Thoughtlessness. That's not a word. Thoughtlessness place she arrived in without any answers. Not again. The red shadow will surely come this time. Suddenly, I saw a new memory. Possibly because I used another to make the trade for something. I heard a familiar yet new sound. I wish for nothing. I seek nothing. Only to fuse with the consciousness that hurtles backward in time to zero. This sound, the bitter, sad meaninglessness, pulls me by my hair. But I have to resist. The red ghost was always going to be my biggest hurdle. I must forget the value of life. I must forget the dignity of death. The sound persists. It's got nothing to do with this journey. It's just an external distraction. And yet, I think I finally understand. I know what noise has been making me so uneasy. What the? The unsettling whispers were directed at me. Or perhaps the red shadow was perplexed by the quiet soul listening to it. It glares at me, its eyes full of hatred. How could I be so unprepared? Don't tell me. You can't be serious. You're going to turn me into your prey for that? That is your everything. You have nothing else. The effect of rewinding, the decision to never say never, his prime, his meaningless life. She negated it. She used her superior power to negate that sound which was an absolute rule to him. Just brushed it aside like it was a cobweb. The sound disappeared. A new one replaced it. I wish for nothing. I want nothing. A pure, obedient heart. That's why you get nothing. A life of falsehood left by affirmation. This is ridiculous. My legs move toward the future, but they stop. Change of plans. I'm taking a different path. Nothing's changed, just something has made me real mad. How can I put it? You call this the past, you idiot? If I don't complain about something to someone, I'll explode. Even if it's just the voice, or to he who hears it, or the part of me who just stays quiet and watches, or to the one who did that to him. With no answer, I opened my eyes. Ako released everything she had dragged up. As for what was there, or what she saw, she could not remember. All she held on to was the fury that burned in her heart. Pushed on by something, she did not know what, she opened the door to magic. The change was extraordinary. Beneath her, the snow vanished, replaced by a small patch of lush green grass. Yo, this music, though? Yo, this Yo, the violins are going! The ground had never existed under the frozen blanket. It had been rewritten into a new landscape. The very elements rejected her, as if the world itself was fighting back. The electrical discharge lashed at her body. This miracle threatened to destroy the world. The world had to protect itself. It moved to expunge her. Pain scorched her every cell, trying to tear away at her consciousness. But she did not falter. All this pain and this loneliness was to take her to the root. Ever since inheriting true magic, she had suffered this torture time and time again. She contended against the voiceless protest of the cosmos. The burden engulfed her retinas and nerves in flames. Then, light. She finally understood. She remembers why she came back and when she wanted to scream.
青を示す我が名において告げる
A censuring voice told her to stop. At the very edges of oblivion, her hand touched the true form of magic. The snarling red shadow was there, telling her it was no use. So much doubt, so much fear, but such things mean nothing to her. To me. I don't care about a magician's obligations or the destruction of mankind. I'm sick and tired of hearing about it. I only have one reason for doing anything right now. God, I can't believe I'm saying this out loud. I just want to save him.
No, say.
Wait, what? Can you say that again?
No, say.
All she said is not sane. That's strong. A blue whirlwind whisked up around her. Casting aside her doubt and sorrow, the magician played her trick upon the world. That's Joker's trick! Holy shit. Time flowed backward. Oh my god. Childhood memories were overwritten. The field! White flowers appeared as far as the eye could see. Brighter than snow, they rippled like a wave across the world, devouring it. Oh, is this the look that I've seen for ages? Hell yeah, it is. I've seen this everywhere. I don't get it.
Timeless words.
Like, I don't get where this look came from, but I've seen it everywhere. 5 timeless words, order has fallen to ruin. What was declared had yet to come. In this time and place alone, the 5th magic made itself known. In the blink of an eye, the snowy clearing had transformed. A sea of fully bloomed white flowers blanketed the grounds. Only the dilapidated school and building with the bare winter trees signified this was the original world. The once cold wind now blew with a pleasant warmth across the landscape. Even the night sky was once again teeming with stars. If one reached out, one could almost touch them. It was a mix of comfort and solitude, quiet enough to carry the sound of insects flying through the air. A scene far removed from the impurity and grief of humans. In the end, we need to get rid of the city. It's still related to the city. A world with nothing, yet one that needed nothing. It was his most precious memory. The winter tundra had changed into a spring meadow. Aoko's so-called true magic confused Toko. Sure was pleasing to the eye, but she wanted to see something less idyllic. Aoko's spell was clearly no small feat, but the surrounding mana had not changed. Better to be confused, though, than deal with something like Alice Kuonji's flat snark. The only changes seemed to be the flower field end Aoko's appearance. She seemed to have received some enhancement to her physical form, but it would never be enough to match Toko.
確かに魔法といえば魔法だが
Toko said with a hint of
あいに
annoyance.
くとお互い夢見る年頃ではないんだまさかそれで終わりではないだろ
She's like, so, you got your melty blood design. So what? Aoko began walking through the sea of flowers. But she was not heading toward Toko.
いえ、これでおしまいよ。私も、あなたも。
Aoko's words sent a wave of unease through Toko. Her sister's voice seemed different somehow. It was mostly the same in pitch, so it had to be the tone. No, that was the same too. Something was off. Could it be... It was then Toko noticed something else had changed. Not just Aoko in the clearing. The severed body lying at Aoko's feet. It was now whole. Corpse reanimation? Wound healing? It did not look like Aoko had used a significant formula, and besides, regenerating a body did not bring it back to life. Since the dawn of time, even true magic has never been able to bring back the dead. But the body of the boy behind Aoko was moving. It was breathing, like it was taking a nap. Hey, what did I say? Using true magic to bring the boy back, like the cat at the beginning, I bet.
死者の蘇生が尾崎の魔法いや違うあれは蘇生というより
It's not reanimation. It's time magic. And real time magic. Not like some frickin', Emiya Kiritsugu, like I'm gonna slow down my body. No. This seems to be real time magic. Before she could think of an answer, Toko realized what seemed out of place to her before. Aoko's mannerisms appeared beyond her years. Her appearance had changed ever so slightly, but beyond there had been a change from within. By the time Toko arrived at that seemingly impossible conclusion, Aoko had closed the distance between them.
タービン、セット。
Aoko raised her left hand to eye level. Toko could see, no, hear, the magical energy generating inside Aoko. It was a sound Toko had never heard before. Aoko only possessed single-function low-grade circuits no better than any third-rate mage, so she generated magical energy at a much lower rate than Toko. However, this speed was absurdly quick, moving even faster than the blood pumping throughout her body. Look at that face! She is pissed. Magecraft could vibrate, but how in the hell were the activated magic circuits audible? Even the association had never heard of such a thing.
我が目前に勝利ありき
Spurred to action by the sudden dread she felt, Toko hurriedly carved runes into the air. Toko summoned the divine protection of victory, Tyr, to surround herself with a barrier, which was further enhanced by her crests. Paying it no mind, Aoko held her arm steady, not moving it to strike her target
まだ
directly.
展開。
Aoko commanded herself succinctly. Holy shit. This was beyond magecraft. In just a few words, she had fired 20 magic bullets. Like a meteor shower, the bullets smashed through the rocket-proof rune barrier, as well as Toko's spell-woven coat.
蒼天ではなく展開だと
The protective runes lining her coat screamed. They would not be able to take another barrage like that. And she had already taken internal injuries. She loathed to admit it, but Aoko vastly outclassed Toko in terms of raw power. Even harder to admit was that her sister probably had not even brought out the big guns yet.
アンサズサウェルイングズ
Jumping backward, Toko drew more runic symbols in the air. In response, her crests burned brightly, but
遅い
just nullified it! With a single word, Aoko nullified the runes, dissolving them before she could be given meaning. The power of Aoko's words had surpassed the magical energy of Toko's rune magecraft. With the runes nullified, Aoko continued advancing through the white flowers. I really, really hope she's walking all this way up just to sock her. From her calmness to the robust spinning of her magic circuits and her breathing, She was different. A woman with sublime self-control, a trait only found in mages with a lifetime of combat experience.
あれは時間か。
Yep. Given the evidence, that was the only explanation for Aozaki magecraft, or magic. Aozaki's magic circuits had not been amplified. That would have been impossible anyway. Like Toko, she would have to externalize them, which would increase the scope of her magical energy and techniques. By nature, the quality of a mage's magic circuits did not change, but Aoko was now clearly a superior mage to Toko. So there was only one logical conclusion. In an instant, she had grown from an amateur to a veteran. She fast-forwarded her own time. Shut up, it's so cool! The scarred red, more like scared red, mage turned her back on her sister and ran. She knew she could not win, so she fled toward the old school building. Aoko did not fire, not out of pity, but because she deduced that an attack in this range was risky. She went to chase after her sister, but stopped suddenly. A few words caught in her throat. She took a small breath.
Alice, そいつ、お願い。
Is Alice also better? Yeah. She said, slightly embarrassed by the maturity of her voice. White petals flitted through the air. Without looking back, she made after Toko, her long hair flowing behind her. This is so good. Oh, we're here? His eyelids snapped open. At last, Sojiro awoke from his long slumber. Lying on his back, he gazed up at the stars. The trees around him created a porthole into space. Despite seeing all this for the first time, he felt an uncomfortable sense of deja vu. So many questions. What happened before he fell asleep? Why had he been sleeping? Everything was just so hazy. It was like he had walked out the door one minute and woken up in bed the next. So many thoughts clouding his mind he could barely recall his own name. All he could remember was a girl he'd never seen before. And something thin around his neck.
しずきくん。
Oh. The voice, quiet but clear, belonged to the girl named Alice Kuonji who was at his side. He sat up, mumbling incoherently. The black-clad girl knelt next to him. He said, paying no mind to Alice. Under the blue moonlight, spring flowers swayed, surrounded by dead trees and snow. Against the curtain of night, white petals danced in the breeze like butterflies. God, every shot of this game could be an art piece. Staring long and hard at the spectacle, Sojiro suddenly raised his fingers to his neck. He moved carefully, like he was touching a wound. And gradually, he began squeezing. Harder. Harder.
しずきくん、
The voice of the girl beside him brought him back to reality.
せっかく戻れたのに。また行くの？
She sounded both sad and reproachful, but Sojiro did not understand why. Seeing the uncharacteristic concern in her eyes snapped him to his senses.
行くってどこに？
His fingers fell away from his neck. Without answering, she plainly looked to the sky. There was only the infinite darkness of space.
まあいいや。それより俺は何をしてたんだろう。なんか変だ。ごちゃごちゃしてる。
Sojiro tilted his head in confusion. Alice observed him motionlessly. This bewildered boy was a far cry from the one that made short work of a werewolf. And again, this was Sojiro. As she stared at him, she realized she did not have an answer he could understand. So she tried asking a question. The same question she had asked him repeatedly as he slept, but eventually gave up expecting a response to.
今まで、しずきくんは何をしていたの？
Her quiet question was spoken like an enthralling spell of magecraft. Said spell seemed to work, and Sojiro sank into a sea of memories. Atop the bright white hill, they quietly sat for a while like siblings. I mean, that doesn't mean much for Kinokunasu. That could mean that they're also gonna bone. I mean, let's be real here.
誰かの声が聞こえた気がする。何かを聞いているようだった。けど、自分は最後まで一言も返せなかった。
Though consumed by the darkness of death, he could still vaguely recall the girl's question. He was not aware that he had died, but it seemed a fragment of time remained from when he had been with her. Sojo's expression darkened, filled with regret. Looking at his profile, Alice pressed him further.
それで欲しいものは見つかった？
Remembering that someone had asked him questions, he gave a slight nod.
ああ、そうだった。けれどね、アリス。そんなものは見つからないって思っていたんだ。うん。ずっとそう思っていた。
The regret in his voice was accompanied by a hint of strength. Lowering his gaze, Sojo saw a white flower garden that looked like something from the afterlife. It shone brightly, captivating him.
思い出した。青子の前でざっくり言ったんだっけ。
I'm shocked you remember.
なのに生きているのはどういうことなんだろう。
Sojo said, prodding his body curiously. His arms were their old selves again, but what of Aoko? He turning toward Alice for an answer, who was sat among the flowers looking sullen.
巻き戻されたのよ、しずきくんは。この風景も本来はあなたの記憶だけど、わからない。
Alice seemed to be speaking in riddles.
俺の記憶って、その割には知らないところなんだけど。
今しずきくんの時間は青子に使われているから、それが戻されるまで思い出すことはないわ。
Interesting. Wait. Is this how the epilogue of Tsukihime happens? Does she use the third magic to talk to Shiki in a world of his memories? That... I mean, he does remember though, but it's still... That would be interesting. She answered ominously as she cast her gaze over the flower garden.
でもこれが消えてしまうのは残念ね。元に戻れば思い返せるのは私だけなの。
Oh. Looking at the white blossoms, she smiled momentarily.
おう。
Her words only confused him further.
アリス、君答える気がないんだろ
He said dejectedly, prompting Alice to face him. What emotions lay inside those deep eyes?
意味のない話だけど聞きたい？
う。聞きたい。アリスが教えてくれるならなおさらだ。
Sojo nodded enthusiastically while Alice took a deep breath and closed her eyes. When she spoke in as caring a tone as she was capable of.
結論だけ言うと、あなたは一度死んで生き返ったの。しずきくんが瞳子さんに殺されてから、青子が目を覚ますまでの5分間分の時間を巻き戻して、その時あなたは10年近い年月を青子に使われた。2人とも肉体年齢は変わってないから、中の時間だけ持っていったんでしょうね。だから今この景色を懐かしく思えるのは青子だけ。
So is that why her outfit's like that? Did she, like, fuse with his memories?
そして
And once the time exchange was over, neither Aoko nor Sojo would remember what happened during these moments. When Aoko used someone else to channel her true magic, it did not affect her alone. If she had rewound time for only herself, the temporal inconsistencies would form part of her own experience. However, this was proper time travel. The inconsistencies would be corrected. When the magic ended, both Aoko's memories of this place and Sojo's unfamiliarity with it would be corrected. This miracle would become unrealized. Only the observers would remember this brilliant white sea of flowers, Alice and Toko.
時間を持っていく？
Sojo asked, his head tilting even farther at Alice's general explanation. She recalled how Aoko said if he gave Sojo a roundabout answer, he would stop asking questions, even if he did not comprehend it.
しずきくんを生き返らせる方法はなかったから、命の復元より死そのものの回避を 青子は試みたのよ。まだ青子には無理なのか、それとも今回もひよったのか。大きな操作は避けて小さな操作、自分とあなただけの交換にとどめたよね。あなたは今5分間だけ時間を飛んだことになるわ。仮に遠い未来、この時間を検索できる人がいたとしても、あなただけは誰にも見つけられない。だって時間軸の上にいなかったんですもの。
It is like I've, from the very, very start of the Nasuverse stuff, have been told pretty explicitly, time travel is super duper not possible easily, and it would be a true magic. And well, here we are.
そして同時に青子は自分の時間を上乗せするためにあなたから時間を借り受けた。
So she's in her late 20s now. Nice.
多分幼年期の時間でしょうね。個人の時間操作は
Huh.
忘却している部分の方が楽だと聞くし。
Should I slow down? Alice asked with her eyes. All Sojiro could do was nod.
つまり2つの奇跡を青子は行使したの。あなたの体の巻き戻しと自分の体の早送りね。しずきくんの時間に介入する際、ついでに10年分の時間を借り受けて未来の自分を持ってきた。
What an absolutely wild use of time travel. I love it.
だから今瞳子さんを殺そうとしているのは27歳分の時間を持った
Nice.
青崎青子ということになるわ。
Nice. What on earth was Alice talking about? Sojiro's expression gave away his thoughts, though the part about Toko made him furrow his brow.
瞳子さんを殺すって青子が。
Oh, buddy, you're not gonna go and stop that, are you?
もう終わってるでしょうけど。
Oh, my man. As soon as Alice answered, Sojiro sped off, kicking up white petals behind him as he ran. The brave boy who defeated a werewolf was back. Alice watched him go, literally not doing the one thing she was asked to do. On a snowy night, the same boy ran down Shiro Inuzuka Hill for her, too. Sojiro entered the old school building. Lights flashed and the sounds of destruction exploded around him, threatening to turn the area into a burial ground. Still, he remained focused.
ほら。悪いけれど、やっぱり無駄だったわ。
You know I have absolutely no way of stopping him. Her words only reached the white flowers around her. Ako knew Sojiro too well, so she wanted Alice to stop him. If he tried to interfere in the battle against Toko, she could not protect him this time. But it was too late to celebrate Ako's judgment now. The girl in black had no intention of going after him. She simply sat for a while, gazing forlorningly at the transient flower garden. How Peak... is Peak still going? We're still doing Peak? Holy shit. A storm of magic bullets struck down a hail of lightning blades. A mage's workshop was their home base and the last line of defense. It featured an abundance of defensive spells designed to cut down brazen challengers and thieves. The old school building was no exception, painstakingly rigged by the puppet master and rune mage Toko Aozaki. A reflection of her bizarre obsessions, the workshop was set to indiscriminately destroy any intruders.
足止めぐらいは果たせバカモン。
Toko complained as she ran down the hallway, activating her traps along the way. But nothing seemed to work. None of the runes, regardless of their quality or quantity, could slow her sister down. Her reaction speed and ability to predict attacks could only be described as transcendent. Even magic bullets fired from both her arms were too much, destroying the runes at the very walls that housed them. So she got a stand thing too with the crests.
それで一人前のつもりか単細胞め。
It ended up being stand v stand battles in the end. Huh? Dang. As she spat out her words, the ceiling opened, increasing the pressure from the runes. Invisible walls popped up in the hallway. Aoko stopped and swung her right leg upward. Wait, is that her kick launcher with the beam? I think that's, yep, straight toward the ceiling. Her foot cut through the thick air like a knife through butter, shattering the ceiling and the runes along with it.
あんたの方こそいつまで経ってもこの凝り性どこもかしこもルーンだらけ少しは遠慮ってもんがないのみんなの思い出の校舎なんだからもっと大切に扱いなさいよね
Oh, you're based. The wooden boards along the hallway that had withstood decades of wind and snow were now destroyed. Aoko charged forward. The chaos was inevitable. While Toko's runes cursed living creatures, Aoko's magic bullets destroyed all without prejudice.
夕方のかけらもないあんなのが自分の妹だと思うと
Toko would do anything to change her blood, but there were more pressing matters at hand. The girl rushing her now was not the sister she remembered, but rather a more complete version of her. Toko couldn't afford to let her guard down for a second. But
笑わせるそんなものが魔法であるものか
localized time travel. Toko didn't believe that was the true nature of the Aozaki's magic. Aoko's transformation had to be merely a byproduct of true magic. She couldn't make heads or tails out of the depths, even with Aoko having achieved it. At the very least, it was not so simple a miracle. After all, the concept of time travel is already made possible through the second magic. Record manipulation, revision of possibilities, and so forth involve the operation of parallel worlds. And so there was no way that could be the fifth magic. Second magic is the kaleidoscope, right?
となると次に出てくる疑問はこれか青子貴様その10年分の時間をどこから持ってきた
That's a lot. That's a lot of runes.
あのボンクラからよ悪い後で返すんだからあんたに非難される覚えはありませんけど
That made sense. There was a bias, but the amount of time on this axis had not been changed. But
ではあの5分間はどうするまさか私を始末した後彼を元の状態に戻すのか
Aoko stopped in her tracks. Toko had took aim at Aoko's glaring oversight. Aozaki magic and Aoko's humanity were inconsistent.
そうだ時間操作では死者の蘇生は許されないお前がしたことは一時だけの気休めか
The magic crests on Toko's back began to demonstrate their true worth. Drawing upon magical energy stored in the crest, she materialized her largest trap yet in the hallway.
あるいはより罪深い暴虐ということだ
Three rune stones appeared. Their scale and level of magical energy were wildly different from the other runes. Created by Toko herself at the Mage Association, they were replicas of one of the lost primordial runes created by a Nordic giant. The three thin crystalline lenses amplified her carved runes tens of millions of times. They rendered projectiles like magic bullets ineffective. Even if Aoko's magical output far exceeded Toko's, these giant slabs were several times more powerful still. Aoko's signature magecraft could only release magical energy, so she had no way to defend or evade the attack. Yo!
メインセット
Fix subject axis main set. Pushing herself on, Aoko took a deep breath of resolve. Instead of defending or dodging, she went low and charged into the rune storm. Holy shit. Infuriated by the realization, Toko set her magic crest to full power. The repeated second-long bursts of time... Through repeated second-long bursts of time travel, Aoko was able to avoid the runes completely. she was either sending the attack's impacts to a different time or layering several thousands of herself atop one another. Oh, my heart. Whatever. No way she could keep up that kind of magical energy output.
1枚目
Aoko kicked the crystal slab to pieces. 2 remain, distance 30 feet. Toko had 10 seconds of magical energy left, but that was all she needed. Aoko, on the other hand, would stop now if she had any common sense as a mage. She couldn't continue breaking the rules for much longer. Then again, time travel itself was breaking the rules.
青子
Once again, Aoko used the same technique. Toko's suspicion turned into white-hot hatred. She couldn't care less about her time travel formula. It was the amount of magical energy she had. Where was she pulling the energy necessary to jump through time for so long?
やはりそうかお前は
It was the death of Sojiro Suzuki. If she had brought him back 5 minutes to when he was still alive, where would those 5 minutes go? Ako's magic wasn't using parallel worlds to change this one. She'd only rewound Sojiro's 5 minutes. Then logically, he returned to being a corpse as soon as the magic ended. Time travel that didn't change the world couldn't change the past. Therefore, if she wanted to save him, she either had to truly resurrect him or send those 5 minutes of reality somewhere far away without returning them.
2枚目
Aoko showed no sign of slowing down. From behind her crystal barrier, Toko glared at Aoko with disdain.
答えろ青子貴様彼の時間をどこにやった
Where would you send it? To the root?
そこにあった熱量の帳尻をどうやって合わせている
そんなの知るかあいつの時間なら遥かな未来に置いてきたわよ
Okay, but is there a non-zero chance that this is what leads to the depletion of, depletion of mana in the future? Did she actually end up causing... Does Aoko cause the heat death of the universe? Is that what we're getting at too? 15 feet to go. Faced with such madness, Toko wanted to cover her eyes. She put the debt of the present in the distant future. A time paradox would have been more humane. Such an enormous, haphazard consumption of heat could not be allowed. After all, time travel alone required a massive amount of energy. Magical energy was required to bring things from somewhere else. At the same time, losing something that exists here consumed an incredible amount of energy. And what about the magical energy used for cooling? It either fell out of equilibrium. If either fell out of equilibrium, it would mean total chaos. The distortion caused by her magic would come to affect this entire sector of space.
バカここに極まったな何千億年後に来る宇宙の死滅人類の行く末に待つデッドエンドにさらなる負債を押し付ける気か
You're gonna pile that onto the dead end. Oh! She did send it to the heat death of the universe. I love video games.
この星の頭上に隕石を作っているようなものだぞというかお前の重みでこの星を押しつぶす気か
That last comment made Aoko's eyes widen. Her every step exerted such force that it broke the floorboards beneath her feet.
その時はその時で今度は負債を過去に送ってやるわよそれなら文句ないんでしょ
No!
歪みに潰されるのは過去だけなんだから
Oh my god! Is Aoko creating lost belts?
それで解決したつもりか現在が確定している以上過去を消滅させてもいいとそれでいいのは私たちだけだ問題の総量宇宙の負債はどうする
Exactly. Even if the universe were closed or the present were still expanding, the absurd increase in heat consumption would become uncontrollable. That which waits for the end of infinite expansion, infinite consumption, and infinite growth is a future without hope. The nothingness before creation. Eventually the universe would burn up.
青子の 青崎の魔法はその結末をより確かなものにするだけだ。その責任をお前は。
The magic causes the heat death of the universe.
言われなくても分かってる。責任なんて私が生きてる間に何とかするわよ。
5 feet to go. The rune blast now carrying all of Toko's hatred focused into a scorching hot laser beam. Her body being torn by the intense heat and her emotions raging, Aoko drove her foot into the ground.
責任を取ると言ったな。ではその具体案は。
そうだよ。
Yes!
これから考えるに決まってるでしょ。
Yes! Punch her!
お前は最悪だ。
Holy shit! Toko's last defense was shattered. Close enough to connect, the two mages unleashed their magecraft. Red runes, blue ether. In a cascade of magic bullets, Toko Ozaki's crests were torn to pieces. And so was Toko herself. I love being alive at the same time as Kino. It was just as Alice said. By the time Sojiro arrived, it was already over. I swear if Sojiro was like, no, sacrifice my time again to bring her back, I would be not happy. The old school building's wooden boards had survived the elements for decades, but they were not ready for a mage duel. The entrance door hung off its hinges. The floorboards groaned. The stairs were ready to collapse underfoot. Toko's escape and Aoko's pursuit had left a trail of destruction, leading all the way to the second floor. The chaos continued to the end of the hallway, by the stairs to the third floor. Toko sat in a heap with her back against the wall. Despite her injury, she kept her eyes firmly on Aoko. She was bleeding internally and had multiple broken bones. She would not be moving anytime soon. Possibly damaged by Aoko's flying kick, her mystic eyes had ruptured from within, closing them indefinitely. Oh, so they're just gone. Okay. Despite her battered and broken body, she was still breathing steadily, a testament to her stubbornness, and her sexy tights had been ripped. Before her stood Aoko, staring down at her, uninjured.
屋上までは持つと思っていたんだが。
Toko was not trying to be facetious. She sounded genuinely disappointed. Aoko responded with a cold glare. Her azure eyes had not changed one bit. They were callous as ever, yet undeniably beautiful. From where she stood, Aoko held out her hand toward Toko, like a hunter about to put a wounded prey out of its misery. The victor was decided. The mage came to steal land and got a death sentence for her trouble. The silence was disquieting. Moonlight peered through the demolished ceiling, illuminating the two sisters with its stare. The utterly mad sibling squabble was over. Now the fireworks were finished, and the cold wind had returned to claim the old school building.
何か言い残すことはある？
Aoko's voice cut through the silence. Toko thought for a moment, before lightly patting her coat pocket. Nothing, she frowned.
最後に一服と思ったが、あいにくお前を待っている間に吸い切ってしまってね。日本のタバコはうますぎていけない。
She does like the Japanese brand. That's a consistent thing, the brand of cigarettes that a lot of characters from Type Moon smoke, and that's hilarious. Aoko gave a small nod.
なかなか常人には真似できない遺言だったわ。
待て待て。いくら私でも遺言まで謎かけをする気はないよ。お望み通り、敗者は敗者らしく当倍を上げるから聞くといい。
Toko's voice was laden with sarcasm, but not hostility or hatred. Perhaps her vendetta was not directed at Aoko herself, but rather a product of two sisters born into a mage family. Yeah, I always felt like that. It felt like a situational thing.
青崎の魔法が 時間旅行に端を発するものとは思わなかった。まだ事情がありそうだが、当事者ではない私には何ともね。ボンプにはわからない悩みだ。せいぜい大事に付き合っていけばいいさ。しかし10年経ってもそれでは先が思いやられる。アリスは何をしていたんだか。
アリスにしてはよく付き合ってくれた方よ。魔術師としてはいつまでも半人前っていうのが彼女の結論。けどまあそうね、あの狼とならいい勝負をしたんじゃない？
あれはダメだ。敗北を知ってしまった。もう半人前に値で勝っていようが、魔法の前には得意性を見失うだろう。ところで青子、お前の魔法とやらは手段か、それとも結果か。
What do you mean by that? Toko wanted to know if it came before or came after. Did Aoko need magic to get where she needed to go? Or did she obtain magic as a result? Oh,
あ
yeah.
とよ、私は扉の前で尻尾を巻いたからジジイの思惑なんて知らないけど。
第一魔法と同じ経緯か。ますます業が深い。第2から第4はその場所へ到達するために生み出されたものと聞く。
So she didn't reach the route. She got to the door of the route and turned away.
同族嫌悪は世の常だ。いずれ第一と食い合わなければいいのだがね。しかし扉ときたか。魔法の継承とはパスの継承のようだな。ではやはりここにユミルの入り口があると。
What are you talking about?
北欧かぶれのあなたにとってはね、私にとってはアカシャの門と言えるものよ。
Oh. Why does that... Oh, right, we did hear that name
最
before.
初からそれを狙っていたんでしょ、あなたは。
Toko used every ounce of strength she could find to nod.
望めば手に入るというのに何台も待つのは嫌だったんだ。
You heard the glass break, right?
ソフトはそれで決別したようなものだったよ。青崎に対する復讐心はそれには優先されなかった。まあ全ては終わったことだ。もう語る必要はない。最後に根源に触れた感想が聞きたいな。
Toko spoke after taking a deep breath. Her last words showed no trace of hatred. Ako remained silent. She began raising her right hand up high. She recalled her grandfather's orders. The source of true magic. Revealing one's knowledge or impressions of the root was strictly forbidden. Oh. Interesting. But this was her sister's dying wish. Maybe it would be okay. The conversation would end the moment she brought her arm down. Then, this rotting shell of a building would become her sister's tomb. What harm could it do? It's not like she planned to follow her grandfather's rules anyway.
白状するとね、姉さん。
Ako's voice carried through the blue hallway.
正直、全然わからなかったわ。
Ako gave a blunt reply and brought her arm down like a bolt of lightning. Or at least, she tried to. Oh. Her hand is so small still. Her arm wouldn't listen to her. It wouldn't budge.
何のつもり？
Cursing Alice, Ako spat her question out with venom. Sojiro materialized from behind, taking hold of her raised arm. Though unable to express it, Toko was shocked to see him too.
で、話して。
Without looking at him, or even at her restrained hand, Ako spoke sternly, her eyes forward. Come to think of it, at the amusement park, he appeared out of nowhere to protect her from that puppet.
聞こえなかった。二度はないわよ。
She was not bluffing. If he interfered, then he would be given no mercy. I've decided to let you live. It would go against that promise, but he should know better. Even so, he maintained his grip on her arm.
いい加減に
As Aoko turned around, the word told caught in her throat. She immediately regretted looking at him. She saw herself in his expression. Mournful sadness, judgmental anger. His conflicting emotions spoke to her of her own internal struggle. Voicelessly, quietly, without volition, rustic gray eyes questioning a deep sin.
言いたいことがあるならはっきり口にしなさい。それができないなら消えて。
Sojiro gently released Aoko's arm as she maintained her resolve. They locked eyes, neither friend nor foe. Their bitterness clashed without words. And then suddenly,
人殺しはいけないことだ。
God, you are so simple. Sojiro stated that in a matter-of-fact way with which Aoko had become all too familiar. His words were empty, trite even, and yet, given her current state, they reached her. Although she would soon forget the fragments of Sojiro's memories, they made her painfully aware of how he felt. Still, she could not agree with him. It would come back to bite her. If she let Toko go now, her sister would come for her again. She had already made 2 attempts on her life. Aoko did not have it in her to forgive her sister for what she had done. Above all, just as Toko said, if Aoko did not change, she would be a novice forever. She had not even won her first mage battle yet, and she knew putting down a blood relative would require even more conviction. Nevertheless, his words echoed over and over in her heart. Murder is wrong. Such a childish phrase, but the earnestness with which he said it, it was enough to make her sick. Resisting, Aoko glowered at Sojiro.
だから殺されたくせにその相手までかばうっていうのあんたは。元気になったら懲りずにやってくる殺人鬼が相手でも見逃してやれっていうの。
まさかそこまで言ったら聖者だ。
I'm
君には
happy.
そこまでのことは言えない。
I'm happy he's pragmatic about this, though. But he would probably still let her go. He did not think that Toko would change, but he also did not care to rationalize her actions based on her life. He was very simply thankful. Thankful that this person before him was still alive. You seem pretty damn saintly to me. That was what made Aoko so angry. His overwhelming innocence and self-righteousness enraged her, like the Hall of Mirrors was happening all over again. The only difference was now, she knew why he was acting like this. It was because she had taken a part of him. He took a step forward, passing by her, saying words he knew he should not.
仕返しなら殺された人間がやるのが筋だろう。君を止められないのは分かってる。だから青崎がやるぐらいなら俺がやる。
Whoa. It was difficult to discern who was the more pathetic in all this. Toko, who had been staring at them the whole time, closed her other eye as if drifting off to sleep.
ごめんなさい、トウコさん。
Knowing her fate, Toko dropped her head as best she could as he walked toward her.
そうだな。君にはそれもいいかもしれない。今は特殊な状況だから、冷めた後に君がどれほど悔やむことになるか想像もできない。ただ、それで君の停滞は終わるだろう。晴れてみそぎ落としというわけだ。純粋に祝福してあげられる。気に食わないのは、それを決意させたのが私ではなかったということぐらいか。
She knew that Sojiro could not understand. I don't. Her words hanging in the air, she closed her lips tightly, then weakly stuck out her slender neck. Sojiro took another step forward. Oh. Or it could do anything, Aoko moved. Spinning in front of Sojiro, she cut off her magical energy and swung her hand as hard as she could. Good! Otherwise, she would have killed him. The sound of her slapping his face echoed through the hall along with his staggering steps.
青崎。
卑怯者。
tears of anger welling in her eyes, Aoko turned her back to Sojiro, sulking as though she would kill him as soon as she looked at him again.
他人の記憶を取り込んだ代償か。引きずられたな、青子。
そうよ。自分の意志を人に曲げられるのがこんなに悔しいなんて知らん。
That was about all Aoko could mutter in response. The corners of Toko's lips curled up into a grin.
何がおかしいのよ、あなた。
いや、お前にも人並みの情けがあるとは思っていなくてね。
It's a lot coming from you, but okay.
バカ呼ばわりは訂正しておくよ。他人の理想を背負うのに怯えるなんて、10年経っても可愛いじゃないか。
あんたね。
そう睨むな。今のは心からの賛辞だ。で、私をどうする？彼に殺させるか、それとも見逃すか？
仕方ないでしょ。あなたの言う通り、これが何よりの代償だったんだから。
Aoko said begrudgingly, shooting Sojiro a sideways glance. He seemed to have recovered from the slap and his usual absent-minded look had returned. He may have had no memories of his past, but his morals and values were too deep to be erased. Sojiro was trying to violate those. It would eat away at him forever, and he would be doing it not for himself, but for Aoko. Aoko understood this all too well now. The moment he said he would do it was the moment he lost. Not stopping him would be no different than watching him die, and she would lose something important inside her. Aoko did not want that to happen.
青崎、やっぱりその自分の受けた傷は自分で返さないと気が済まない性格か？
Aoko ignored Sojiro, who seemed to have gotten the wrong idea. Instead, she directed her scowl at Toko, who still lay collapsed in front of her.
わかったわよ。トウコ、今回は見逃してあげる。けど、ただで帰れるとは思ってないわよね。
Toko scowled at her little sister, standing smugly over her.
祖父のところに突き出すのなら、ここで引導を渡してくれ。
まさか、私もあの人には会いたくないもの。あなたにはこのまま出て行ってもらうわ。邪魔もしないし、教会に届けも出さない。
Just, hey, get out of here, get out of
い
here!
つかは私が言い含めておくから、今回の件は私たちだけの秘密よ。
Toko's brow creased further. There has to be a catch.
青子、何を企んでいる？
別に。その代わりに呪いをプレゼントしようと思って。今まで散々ガンド食らってきたし、おあいこでしょ？まあ、私のはちょっと強力だけど、今後この土地に入ろうものなら、マダガスカルガエルになってもらうわ。
Smiling as though they just had arranged to eat Chinese food tomorrow night, Aoko walked toward Toko.
はて、なんでそういうものだけ習得してるんだ、お前は。
そりゃ師匠がアリスだもの。偏るのは当
Of
然でしょ。
course she has weird fairy tale-based magic. The elder Ozaki's sister's brow knitted so hard it could have produced a sweater. That's a good line. Perhaps why her sister would stay a novice forever.
宗十郎、席外して。
Get out of here.
覗き見が趣味なら別に見ていってもいいけど。
I am. As she spoke, she began removing his sister's overcoat. The uncomfortable look in Toko's eyes compared to the strangely cheerful one in Aoko's caused Sojiro to hesitate. Was it really okay to leave the two of them alone? Eventually, he nodded. This was just a weird game between sisters.
覗き見は確かにいい趣味じゃないな。
Coward. Muttering to himself more than anything, he ducked into an empty classroom.
なんだそのブサイクで悪趣味な術式は。センスがないにも程がある。お前本当に私の妹か？
Is Sojiro just jumping through windows because he can?
この通り、芸術的才能は全部姉貴に持っていかれた哀れな妹でして。嘆くなら自分の天才性を嘆きなさい。
Down the cold, dilapidated hallway, cries of sadness, joy, and anguish rang out. Outside, the fully bloomed white flower petals floated one by one into the night. Standing among the ballet of petals, Alice gazed up at the sky. The blossoms gathered into a cloud, then slowly vanished as though falling asleep. Soon, not a single flower would remain, and the clearing would return to a snowy tundra. The magic had ended. In a matter of minutes, the past would return to its rightful place. Along with it, the time shared between the boy and the girl. The old school building was still. Alice embraced the silence and patiently waited. After a while, Sojiro emerged from the building, and Alice released a puff of white breath. A small sigh of relief. It was over. Sojiro approached, carrying Aoko, cradling her in his arms. Was she asleep? Her eyes were closed and seemed peaceful. Okay, so it's not... I was fully expecting this to be her hair permanently becomes red after she activates the magic. But I think it's just as she advances on her journey, it becomes red and then glows. I see. Her hair and limp body dangled like a silk drape. She looked just like a sleeping beauty. See, now this works.
待っていてくれたんだ、アリス。
He said, holding Aoko with little effort. Alice nodded.
瞳子さんはどうなったの？
いや、よくわからないけど、瞳子さんは帰ったよ。青崎が言うには、そう簡単に解除できない呪いをかけたから、向こう10年は三崎市には入ってこれないって。
That's probably not enough time.
その後、瞳子さんが尻尾を巻くのを仁王立ちで見届けて、見えなくなったらそのまま倒れたんだ。
Alice's response was brief, as if wondering if things were really so simple. She seemed more concerned about Toko than Aoko, which made Sojiro concerned about Alice and Aoko's relationship more than anything.
それはともかくとして、青子はどうなっているんだろう。
He asked nonchalantly as he looked at Aoko breathing deeply in her sleep.
矛盾と清純を合わせているのね。彼女の時間は今の時間とは異なってしまったから。
Sojiro nodded in understanding, very clearly still not comprehending a single word Alice just said.
なんか拍子抜けしたよ。結局、瞳子さんと青崎、どっちが勝ったのかよくつかめない。
In the end, we're the winners.
そうね。魔術師の争いには明確な点数はつけられないから。瞳子さんの大目的が青崎の魔法の解明なら、魔法を使わされた時点で青子の負けよ。その後のいざこざは凱旋する勝者を夜道で襲ったようなものだし。
Alice said as she turned her sights to the forest. Even Sojiro could tell that Alice's way of saying, "Let's go home."
そうだね。青崎もアリスも、このままじゃ風邪をひく。ああ、それと、青崎が瞳子さんに呪いをかけるとき、何かしてたんだけど。
Sojiro trailed off, hoping Alice would tell him what it was, but a stony and somewhat affected gaze was her response.
見たの？しずきくん。
いや、青崎が出てけって。
そう。それで青子はどんな呪いをかけたの？
カエルがどうとか。
Sojiro's explanation made Alice's expression darken. Aoko was still a long way from learning any sort of polymorph spells.
そう。
Her thoughts prevented her from finishing the sentence. In actuality, it was perfectly within Aoko's abilities, considering where she was at that moment in time. As Aoko has said, Toko would not be able to dispel the curse for 10 years. And the Aoko of this time had not the ability to use such a curse, which meant Toko did not have anyone to rebound the curse to. No matter how much she researched dispelling powerful curses, she could not do it with the Aoko of this timeline.
青子が瞳子さんにつけたのは切り傷ぐらいだから、しずきくんが心配するようなことはないわ。青子にしては随分と生ぬるい処置だけど。
After her slightly unsettling remark, Alice quietly began to walk. Sojiro followed her, Aoko in his arms. Together, they left the clearing and moved into the forest. As they did, Sojiro abruptly froze.
しずきくん、
He looked back toward the old school building's field with a strange expression. Was it homesickness he felt? Though this was only his second time seeing it, he had a nostalgic feeling like he would never be back. He looked like a child saying goodbye to an old toy that was to be thrown away. Seeing his expression, Alice felt a hint of sympathy and chided herself.
あの荒れ地がどうかした？
She asked him, watching the flowery garden fade into a snowy field. Sojiro shook his head.
なんとなく、知っている場所に似てる気がして。 おかしいな。やってきた時はそんな気はしなかったのに。
Because he's getting his memories back. He stood staring at the tundra for what seemed like an eternity, reluctant to leave. If she left him there, he would still be gazing at it by morning, probably even longer. But there was no point in doing that. In the end, Alice was the only one who would remember the beautiful scenery he yearned for.
ここはその場所にそんなに似てる？
全然似てない。面影すら皆無だ。
ならそれは気の迷いよ。
Sojiro nodded at Alice's harsh conclusion. He smiled slightly, deciding it was pointless to want something that did not exist.
そうだね。多分幻を見ていたんだ。あれは一度幸福だった時の夢だった。
Severing the ties that bound him, Sojiro turned his back away from the snowy clearing, away from the unfamiliar yet familiar place where he had known happiness.
さあ、早く帰ろう。青崎は重いし、体も疲れてる。
It's a good thing she's not awake.
洋館に着いたらあったかいお茶を入れよう、アリス。
Sojiro spoke with her name with a smile. Her heart skipped a beat. Oh. Since when did he start saying her name so casually like that? Somehow she managed to nod before beginning to walk again. As he moved away from her, she asked a small question to his back.
重いって私より？
Oh, 100%. There's two big reasons why she would be. Aoko was a bit taller than Alice, so naturally she would weigh more, but Alice wanted to hear him say it anyway. Not one to disappoint, Sojiro answered without missing a beat.
ああ、数値的に言うのなら、アリスより10キロ増しぐらい。
He's so upfront.
青子が聞いてたら大変ね。
It's a good thing she's unconscious. Judging by Alice's tone, she's probably going to tell Aoko later.
字が悪いな、アリスも。
That's
それ
adorable.
に、さっきのは本人の名誉のために死者誤入してたんだぞ、一応。
Oh, these three are great. His attempts at being kind had likely drawn him closer to his
ダ
deathbed.
メかな。
He asked nervously. Alice could not help but crack a smile at his innocence. However, she was not used to smiling in front of others, so she turned away and walked into the woods. From Sojiro's perspective, she was storming off in a mood.
なんだ、友達の悪口で怒るなんて。やっぱり仲はいいんじゃないか、青崎。
Sojiro rushed to catch up with Alice, gently carrying Aoko along the way. Though the prince lacked the courage to kiss the sleeping princess, which I don't think he would do. In fact, I think that Sojiro and Alice have much better... I do. He at least had saved her and was bringing her back to her castle. Despite what he had been through, he did not look like your typical hero. Still, in this story at least, he most certainly was. I have no words for how good that was. I'm going to need to split this into 2 episodes just for the fact that this was 3 hours. Wow. Yeah, thank God there's an epilogue. Thank God there's more. This was incredible. This was really good. I definitely still have some questions, right? Whether they will be answered by the comments or whether they are true questions that we don't know the answers to, we'll have to see. Thank you all for watching, everyone. Both parts, because I'll be putting these up as 1 and 2. We'll see you next time for some more Witch on the Holy Night, as we pretty much, I think we're rounding out the bend with perhaps the epilogue and any other bonus content that we will unlock, because I know there's still some stuff that we haven't seen. I know because I have thumbnail art of it. Thank you all for watching, guys. We'll see you next time. Ciao.